Today, you are going to see the greatest westerns in history. Films that are not only the best of their genre, but also among the greatest in cinema history. Duels, honor, revenge, and redemption in timeless stories that built the mythology of the Old West. From the classics that laid the foundation to the masterpieces that reinvented the Western. Today on Cine Prime.
Last chance, fancy pants.
Oh, very well.
Django Unchained is the wildest, most violent, and dazzling Western in cinema, heavily inspired by the Wild Bunch. Blending the brutality of the Old West with the style of the spaghetti Western, the film reinvents the genre with a relentless pace, sharp dialogue, and unforgettable characters. Jamie Foxx embodies Django, a slave-turned-bounty hunter in search of his wife, while Christoph Waltz shines as the charismatic Dr. Schultz. Leonardo DiCaprio and Samuel L. Jackson deliver memorable villains, adding intensity to a story of revenge and redemption. With impeccable direction and explosive action sequences, Django Unchained is not just a tribute to Westerns, but one of its boldest reinventions. Tarantino doesn't just rewrite history, he turns it into an unforgettable cinematic spectacle, solidifying his place among the greats of the genre and proving that the Western can still evolve and surprise. High Noon is much more than a Western. It is a masterpiece about honor, courage, and loneliness. Gary Cooper delivers one of the most iconic performances in cinema as a sheriff abandoned by his people, facing his fate with dignity and bravery. Shot in real time, the tension builds with each passing minute, creating a suffocating and unforgettable atmosphere. Fred Zinnemann revolutionized the genre by steering away from conventional action and focusing on the protagonist's moral conflict. Its story is a timeless critique of cowardice and indifference, with a message that transcends the Western. The cinematography, staging, and legendary soundtrack further enhance its impact. High Noon left an indelible mark on film history, becoming a symbol of resilience, integrity, and sacrifice. An absolute classic that remains as relevant as the day it was released. Stagecoach forever changed Western cinema and elevated the genre to an unprecedented level. John Ford narrates the perilous journey of a group of strangers through hostile territory, turning a simple trip into a masterful exploration of human nature. With a perfect balance of action, tension, and drama, the film set a new standard for storytelling and character development. John Wayne, in his role as Ringo Kid, cemented himself as the definitive face of the Western, while Ford's direction captured the vast landscapes of Monument Valley with breathtaking beauty and delivered action sequences that remain just as stunning today as they were upon release. Beyond its impeccable technical execution, the film introduced emotional and narrative depth rarely seen in the genre at the time. Stagecoach remains an essential film for any cinephile. For a few dollars more, took the spaghetti Western to another level, with Sergio Leone perfecting his unmistakable style of drawn-out duels, piercing stares, and a masterful use of time that stretches tension to the breaking point. Clint Eastwood and Lee Van Cleef play two bounty hunters with opposing methods, united by vengeance in a game of betrayals and bullets. Leone's direction is hypnotic, with close-ups that convey more than any dialogue and action sequences orchestrated with surgical precision. Ennio Morricone's score, with its eerie whistles and grand melodies, transforms each confrontation into an opera of violence and destiny. More than just another entry in the Dollars trilogy, this film solidified the spaghetti Western as a global phenomenon and elevated the genre to a level of greatness few films have achieved. The Wild Bunch is the ultimate revisionist Western, a violent and bitter farewell to the Old West and the men who inhabited it. Sam Peckinpah reinvents the genre with a story of outlaws on the brink of extinction, clinging to a code of honor the world no longer respects. William Holden, Ernest Borgnine, and the rest of the cast embody complex characters caught between loyalty and desperation. But what truly makes it immortal is its portrayal of violence, brutal, chaotic, with no glory or redemption. Its groundbreaking use of slow-motion editing, intercut with rapid cuts, forever changed how action scenes were filmed, influencing directors like Scorsese and Tarantino. The final massacre, fierce and relentless, is one of the most shocking moments in film history. The Wild Bunch didn't just redefine the Western, it opened the doors to a new era of grittier, more realistic and merciless cinema, forever altering how violence is portrayed on screen.
Volta! No!
Bitch.
Unforgiven is the ultimate farewell to the Western, a masterpiece that dismantles the gunslinger myth and exposes violence in its rawest form. Clint Eastwood directs and stars in this revisionist tale where heroes don't exist, and revenge leaves only scars. William Money, a reformed killer, returns to a path of death, not for honor or justice, but out of necessity and desperation. Every gunshot hurts, every death carries weight. Gene Hackman plays a brutal sheriff who believes he is on the right side, but in this decaying West, law and crime are two sides of the same coin. The film's somber cinematography and slow pacing amplify the gravity of each decision, leading to a climax where violence ceases to be a spectacle and becomes an act of pure horror. Unforgiven is not just the end of the classic Western, but one of the most devastating reflections on the price of blood in cinema history.
All right, dude. This time, right between the eyes.
The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance is not just a Western, it is a profound reflection on the birth of myth and the construction of history. In his final great work in the genre, John Ford challenges Western conventions, revealing the harsh reality behind heroes and villains. James Stewart, as an idealistic lawyer, confronts a system that sacrifices truth to forge legend. Lee Marvin, as the ruthless Liberty Valance, embodies the violence and chaos of a world where justice is uncertain. With a narrative that plays with memory and fiction, Ford demonstrates that sometimes history is not built on what actually happened, but on what needs to be believed. The famous line,
When the legend becomes fact, print the legend.
is a reminder that cinema, like history itself, has the power to create myths that shape reality. The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance is a landmark in film history, a work that transcended the genre to become a lesson in how storytelling shapes the world. Once Upon a Time in the West is one of the most monumental films in cinema, and undoubtedly one of the greatest westerns ever made. Directed by Sergio Leone, this masterpiece is an elegy of violence, honor, and redemption. Through a slow, meticulous narrative, Leone crafts a unique emotional and visual landscape, where tension builds not only through gunfights, but through silences, stares, and music. Ennio Morricone's stunning score dictates the rhythm of a story filled with symbolism and emotion, arguably his finest work. Once Upon a Time in the West set a new standard for westerns, blending violence with haunting beauty and unparalleled emotional depth. The characters are deeply layered, harmonica, Jill, but the standout is Henry Fonda's portrayal of one of the greatest villains in cinema history. His chilling introduction, where he coldly murders a family, including a child, shattered audience expectations. Fonda, known for playing heroes, completely broke the mold by delivering a sadistic performance. To understand its impact at the time, it would be like Tom Hanks playing John Wayne Gacy today. The Searchers is a John Ford masterpiece that transcends the Western genre. Through the journey of Ethan Edwards, a man obsessed with rescuing his kidnapped niece, Ford presents a morally complex and deeply emotional story where the line between good and evil is blurred. In his darkest role, John Wayne portrays a man consumed by hatred, willing to sacrifice everything for his mission, even his own humanity. The film challenges genre conventions by portraying a protagonist whose actions and motivations are far from heroic. With breathtaking cinematography, Ford uses the vast desert not just as a setting but as a reflection of the inner desolation of his characters. Themes of racism, vengeance, and redemption run deep, but it's the moral ambiguity of its characters that makes the film timeless. The Searchers didn't just define the Western, it reshaped storytelling, intertwining myth and reality. The final shot, with Ethan standing outside the doorway, isolated from the world, is one of the greatest endings in cinema history, symbolizing his eternal condemnation and solitude. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is the pinnacle of the Western genre, Sergio Leone's magnum opus that defined an era of cinema. With its epic narrative, Leone elevates the Western to a unique level, blending violence with emotional subtlety and unmatched moral complexity. Clint Eastwood, Lee Van Cleef, and Eli Wallach portray three of the most iconic characters in film history, each representing a different perspective on morality and survival in a lawless world. Ennio Morricone's score becomes a character of its own, transforming each scene into a deep sensory experience. The masterful use of time, silences, stares, and gunfights creates a constant tension that never falters. And the final duel? Undoubtedly, the greatest standoff in cinema history. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is not just the greatest Western ever made. It is one of the most influential and revolutionary films of all time, with a legacy that continues to shape modern cinema. That concludes the list. Remember to like, subscribe, and leave a comment with your thoughts. You can also follow me on Instagram, where I reply to everyone, and on Letterboxd to see the films I love. See you next time.